For Crema Media's Polity, I'm Sane Dlamini. Former Bafana captain Tovey discusses his book titled A Captain's Journey. So this book is about your life on and off the pitch. Can you tell us how your love for the game started back in Durban?
Yeah, I was a young player at 5 years of age that put on a pair of football boots that were much larger than my feet, but I was lucky enough to wear a couple pairs of socks that helped the cause, and from that time playing club football, obviously I was kicking the ball around the garden, and I was lucky to have a brother 7 years my senior playing football, so you just engaged with kick-arounds and the fact. And then that was at 5 years of age. Played my first club football arranged matches, obviously, you know. And then obviously carried on playing in the park, where we had just anybody that came down to the park would play, and it was all races. Yeah. And you don't quite know that how it's going to pan out, because I'm a youngster in apartheid life. Playing with black, whites, colours, Indians. It didn't make any difference to me as a youngster. We were just playing in the park, playing football. And so you don't quite know how that's going to actually pan out and set you up for the rest of your life, given the fact that I was going to sign professional forms and play in an apartheid area for a multiracial sport like soccer.
You've always had a dream of playing for the mighty Amakhosi. How did you feel when you finally wore black and gold jersey in 1990, the same year that Nelson Mandela came out of prison?
Yeah, my football career took me, you know, as I mentioned already, that playing in apartheid in the 80s with Durban City, which was predominantly a white club, with a few black players and coloureds and that. With Moffat Zumas and Rodney Charles and that, because the sport was a multiracial sport in 1978. And then leading into playing for Amazulu, a Zulu club, a cultural difference. But my aspirations and inspiration came from Kaizer Chiefs, the most successful football club in the country, winning major competitions all the time. And as you know, we weren't part of an international arena at that stage, so basically playing for Kaizer Chiefs was going to be my pinnacle. But yeah, and sort of they were my favorite team, you know, in terms of the glitz and the glamour around Amakhosi, you know. So I was very lucky and privileged to join them in 1990. And had a wonderful 10 years with them in the 90s.
Can you tell us about a funny Sangoma story that happened while you were playing for Amazulu Football Club and how you inherited your nickname Pikoko?
Yeah, as I said, coming out of a predominantly white club in Durban City and then joining Amazulu, I knew I'd have to grow with the cultural differences of the club, and I was prepared to do that. You know, I wasn't alien to the fact that I would have to do that. I was entering a club that with huge traditional values, and Muti was part of it. And my first experience, and you know, because we at Durban City never used to camp before the match unless we were away from home, not at home. And my first experience, my first game with Amazulu playing against Acadia Shepherds at Kings Park Stadium in Durban, never having won that match. Or Amazulu never ever beating Acadia Shepherds home or away for that matter. And having the experience of Muti the night before, and then playing so well the next day and creating an opportunity for Julius Chua to equalise. And I headed in the winner. I thought, well, maybe this Muti works. But I just bought into it and I went with it, and I grew with Amazulu as a club, and the fans could relate to that, because if you enjoy anything that you do, I enjoyed the the challenges that went with AmaZulu, and we were doing well as a club. We suddenly, a team that was fighting relegation season in, season out, was now competing in the Mainstay Cup final in 1987, challenging up and well into the top 8, in fourth position, fourth position. So we were now striving and winning games, and even went so far as to do really well against the top teams like Kaizer Chiefs. You know, I think there was in the space of a couple of weeks where we played Kaizer Chiefs back to back and won 3-0 away from home and won 5-1 in Durban. I mean, to score 8 goals, concede 1 against Amakosi as AmaZulu, I mean, was a huge feat for us. So that's when our players started to get noticed, and they started to notice the qualities of our team. And yeah, so that was great years.
And do you know how you inherited that name, Peacock?
Peacock was all about being this peacock strutting around the middle of the midfield, because I used to play in the midfield at that stage, and I suppose they saw me as some lungu in the middle of the midfield, acting like a peacock, you know, being, you know, all over the place, strutting itself.
Yeah.
And so I suppose, yeah, the AmaZulu fans took to it. And it was a sense of value to the team, because, you know, fans don't give players nicknames unless they've really warranted it.
Your first encounter with Clive Barker in 1980 while you were playing with Durban Juventus was not so good, but you quickly realized that you were talented despite your shoe size. Can you tell us about that story?
Yeah, like, I mean, I always had big feet. I was quite fortunate at school, because I mentioned my brother, 7 years my senior. But even as 7 years my senior, when I was around 10, 11, I was wearing his size boots already. So I could get all his hand-me-downs. So I laughed at it a lot. Yeah. But coming back to Clive, and yeah, he noticed me coming across and said, oh, maybe this guy, I don't think he can play. But then once we got onto the field, he realized that I could play the game of football, and one of my strengths was passing the ball accurately. And he thought, how the hell does he pass the ball accurately with such big feet, you know? So yeah, that's part of the history, I suppose.
Your book, in a way, is a documentation of South Africa's recent football history, because you talk about the important milestones related to the game. Is that what you wanted to achieve?
My intention is not a football book. The book, Captain's Journey, is about life's lessons that I had, that I encountered throughout my life, the ups and downs, and you know, when you looked at as in the sense of the word, like I'm looked at, everybody thinks, well, Neil had no bumps in his road and his journey. Meanwhile, the book talks about many bumps in the road and many ups and downs that you have to encounter. And those ups and downs make you stronger as a person. And they realize, because you've got an area where you can go back to say, geez, if you got to remember great times, sometimes it's the low times that help you say, well, this is where I was and this is where I am now. So you can relate back, and everybody in life needs those bumps in the road to realize how privileged and they are in life in general. And so I've had many away from the game of football with my son, Sheldon, who had that really terrible accident back in '98 when I was still playing for Chiefs, and the rigors I had to go about, seeing him every day in hospital, not knowing whether he would survive the next morning, but going to a Kaizer Chiefs training session where I had to put it aside and train hard, go to a football match having just visited him in a hospital, whereas I don't think many of the players that were in the team then knew what I was going through mentally and that. So, you know, I think once people can read about that in the book, then they kind of appreciate what I did for the club. I never missed one training session, I never missed one match when my son was on his deathbed. And so that was a passion I had about it, but I also knew I could have to relate to it in that way, that training took me away from the hospital and took me away from the sadness that's in the hospital, where I could go and express myself on the football field, but then I had to come back to it. So it was ups and downs, but the club knew what I was going through, and the team knew what I was going through. I don't think many other people knew, the fans knew, because, you know, what I was going through. So that's where I'd like to, you know, the book talks about it, and then obviously with my health scares myself, with my heart attacks, dying for 2.5 minutes. You know, not many people have that in their life. So, but once again, you come back and you relate to moments, and it happens to you, and you ask yourself, why did it happen? And you have to say, yeah, it's sometimes the life reminds you of areas of where you can take cognizance of your life. And now, if a taxi driver cuts in front of me, I don't worry too much.
No.
I don't worry too much. There's more things to worry about than the small things in life, you know. And we tend to worry about small things and make small things big and big issues. And I don't live like that anymore.
You also talk about the exciting news when South Africa was allowed by FIFA to play in international football in 1991. Sunday Times' prediction of the potential players who were going to play against Cameroon didn't mention your name, but you were selected. How did you feel when Screamer Shabalala selected you? Yeah,
look, I mean, I was part of Jeff Butler's first. We had a preliminary game in the so-called first 11 against. First, not 11, but first squad against the rest of South Africa kind of team. And I was part of that one. But then after that match, there was brandishing about, and as you say, you alluded to it, and I remember Salem, he had a squad of 44 players, probables, if you can call them that, and I wasn't even in that. And then Screamer, not only making the squad, I was great and excited to make the squad, but when Screamer said to me, Neil, I want you to be my captain, and sure, you know, well, look, captaincy wasn't going to be a problem for me because I'd captained teams throughout my career and my life in different other forms of sport as well. So captaining wasn't going to be a problem, but you know, the aura at that stage didn't really hit me so much because, but now looking back at it, that I was the first captain of captaining our South Africa back into readmission. So yeah, a wonderful experience for me. Yeah.
I noticed how Clive Barker and Kaizer Motaung spoke highly of you in their forewords. You must have had a special relationship with them. Tell us about that.
Obviously, Clive, as we alluded to and talk about in the book, how he's gone through my virtual soccer career in my younger days, when even there was a selection process with my provincial teams, going through from Durban City to Amazulu, and then to the national South African national team. Kaizer, obviously my special sort of bond that I had with Kaizer in the 90s. Kaizer was special because I could always relate to him being that he had played the game at the highest level. So just popping into his office, I could talk to the man and talk to him, and he knew what I was doing for the club as well, and I knew what Chiefs was doing for me. You know, it was hand in hand. I mean, it was a time in the 90s, as you mentioned, we become now part of international football, and we were losing our top players regularly, season in, season out. The likes of the Fani Madidas, Dr. Kamala went overseas for a while, Ace Kuzi we lost, Steve Compella we lost, Shoes Michelle we lost, Bradley Canal we lost, Mark Williams, Pollen, I mean the list is endless, Lucas Khadebis. So Kaizer Chiefs as a club was losing player after player. I mean, if we had retained the players, those caliber of players in the 90s, like most other clubs did, yes, Sundowns lost Chippa Masinga and maybe Sizwe, was 1 or 2, whereas we lost 6, 7, 8. And I had to keep a team together. I was Madala at that stage. I was in my 30s and I wasn't going to be playing overseas, you know. Teams had done inquiries, but obviously when my age came into it, I was there. So my major role for Chiefs in the 90s And we still won trophies, but not as many. We lost a lot of league championships, runners-up, and that purely because we lost so many players season in, season out. And even sometimes halfway through the season where we won the league. I remember one season, Kaizer Chiefs and Pollen left for Turkey, I think, and he was the leading goal scorer, and we were top of the table. And to lose your top goal scorer halfway through the season was a tragedy for us. But we managed to finish second to Sundowns, I think, that season. There was another season where we lost Mark Williams. He was top goal scorer halfway through the season. So I was purely a person bringing the youngsters through, using my experience to bring the likes of Thabo Morkes, Tabang Labisis and the Jabu Pules through, you know. So that was my major role at Kaizer Chiefs, which I don't think a lot of the fans maybe knew about as well. So, yeah.
South Africa just came out of apartheid when you played in the 1996 Africa Cup of Nations. Mandela used sports to unite South Africans. What was it like meeting the man and eventually lifting the trophy, which you say was for him?
Yeah, I mean, it's common knowledge that we only got it readmitted into international football because we were going about to become a democratic country, and we had this stature of a man, Nelson Mandela, which we could look to for a source of inspiration, and it was because of him that we were now playing international sport. And I'm talking from all international sportsmen, not just football. And how it transformed sportsmen's lives was immense, was huge. I mean, I wouldn't be where I am today if it wasn't for him. And all of us could relate to it. So when we won, and I mean the rugby related to Mandela's presence, we related to Mandela's presence and the statue of the man. And when I received the trophy, we engaged and said, oh, I'm so happy and thank you very much, he said to me. And I said, no, this is a big thank you to you, because we couldn't have done it without him. And the role that he played. And yes, we know that for the quick unification of the country, sport was going to play a major role. And he knew it. Being the man that he did, he knew that. And so it was all these great sporting moments that were now coming at regular intervals. It was amazing for the country, and it's a pity that we've got to get it back. We've got to get those moments back in this country.
Exactly. But 3 weeks after winning AFCON, you lost your mom. Tell us a bit about her and how the game of soccer helped you to heal your wounds.
Once again, coming back to those bumps in the road, you have your such highs, coming out of a major competition win. And my mother was sick, but my family kept her away from me for a while during the competition, you know, and I did not know how sick my mother was. And only after winning, she then had to fly to Johannesburg because she lived in Durban, because my brother and I were living up here. And she came up, she was only up here for a week and before she passed on. But it was great that I could relate, I could see her before she passed on. But it helped heal, like you say, that there was such aura around the winning of AFCON. It kind of took away from my mourning process to a certain stage where I had so many other things to think about. And given the fact that yes, you have to mourn for your mum and dad and your parents, and she was inspirational. I mean, she was so inspirational to me growing up. She was a caring person, you know. I think I got her qualities of caring, being a nurse. You know, she was a nurse, and so she had that sort of aura around her as well. And yeah, it was sad moments, but she was sick, so you know, the suffering wasn't too long. So you know, if you can talk along those lines, which you can't because it's your mom. But yes, it helped with the process. But once again, very much a high and very much a low.
Bafana beat Egypt on their home soil as the Africa Cup of Nations tournament progresses. If you were to speak to them ahead of their game with Nigeria, what would you say to them?
Do what you did in beating Egypt. Because why do you have to play against an opponent where people are saying that you can't win against, to bring out your best performance? You have to bring out that mental capacity in every game and treat every game like a cup final. Play it as though it's your last match. Play every match as though it's your last match, that you're going to give it your all, that you're going to play with the freedom that you can, because we play much better when we play with freedom. If we inhibit ourselves, we are a creative nation, we are a creative team. So go back to what makes us good, play like that, but within the conforms of being a very well organized structure in the team. You have to have a very well organized team structure, and then from then on play with exuberance, play with creativity, and play like you can, and make things happen. Because we did not see in the first 3 group games, we never saw things being made to happen. We were well structured defensively, but we never made things happen. We made things happen from the first whistle against Egypt. It was very pleasing to the eye, and that's all what our country, what our fans want to see. We are a very forgiving country if they see us play with our hearts, and yes, we are a winning nation, we want to win, but there was comments around the game, halfway through the game, even if we lose this match, the way we played today, we're happy people. And that's what we got to remember, that the supporters there, if you are seen to be playing with great values and creativity.
You have been lucky to survive after 2 cardiac arrests, but after the second one, you say that a cyclist saved your life. Why do you wish to meet him, and what did you say to him?
Yeah, when I had the second one, it was in a cycle race, so not many people want to really stop on the side of the road. They do want to stop, and I had a lot of questions. Are you okay, Neil? And I brushed it, but an African gentleman, he stopped, and he said, because he recognized me, and said if he can assist in a support process. And I said, please just call the police. They're just down the road. I need help because I'm not in a good way. I realized I'm having a heart attack, so I need some help. So please, can you help me? And he did. And when you're in that state, I can't remember who it was. I didn't take any race numbers. I didn't, which was unfortunate because I'd like to have assisted him and helped.
And lastly, as a technical director at SAFA, what do you think can be done to produce good, disciplined soccer players that can take South Africa to new heights on the football field?
Well, we've got programs around the country where I've got provincial technical officers that will assist with coach education, good frameworks, good competition frameworks, and the like to selection processes that we are now embarking on down in ground level with grassroots and programs alike. So if we get those which are now embarking, those will help bring more talent through in the future years and help SAFA grow.
That was Neil Tovey speaking to Creamer Media's Polity about his book titled A Captain's Journey.